On this episode of Intent Topics, we're going to talk about a framework we call the 4 C's of writing effective sales emails. All right, what's up, Logan? How you doing today?
It's cracking, dude.
Not a lot. So today, we're going to talk about writing sales emails in a framework you have created called the 4 C's. What do you say?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. I love it. Let's go into it.
I love a nice framework. Who doesn't love a nice framework? Let's get into it. What are the 4 C's? Can you list them off real quick for us?
Yep. So email copy, sales email copy needs to be conversational. It needs to be concise. It needs to have a conspicuous point, and it needs to be contextual.
Love it.
Bam.
The 4 C's. So let's go.
Dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge.
Is that from Dodge? Is that dodgeball?
That's dodgeball.
I'm gonna have to dust that one off.
Yeah, dude, you need to dust that up. I love it.
That is a classic. That was a great era of movies right there with Vince Vaughn.
Dodgeball. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of Vince Vaughn. They're all the same characters in every movie, right? Vince Vaughn's the same guy. Ben Stiller's the same guy. It's great. Great time to be alive. Yeah. They really figured out it must be the 4 C's of comedy.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get back into it. So the 4 C's of writing good sales emails. All right, let's start with conversational. Go into that for me.
Cool. And disclaimer, I didn't come up with this, but you know, as we're trying to scale the company, we need to build these frameworks to be able to get them into the hands of the people who are creating our content, and also now, you know, with the people who pay attention to what we're doing. So,
wait,
conversational.
Hold on. Yeah? You didn't create this? This whole time, I thought you had created this. I thought you were just this framework guru. And I just finding out, I feel like I just learned that maybe the tooth fairy doesn't.
Let's be real. Like the words in the framework, yeah, sure. But like we've been working on this sort of how to write good sales copy and match it to intent data and all this, you know, data that we use for the last couple of years. So I would say the framework, the words, yeah, sure. I was just jamming out on my computer on the way up to Vermont a couple of weeks ago.
And voila, a framework was born. I'm saying, I'm giving it to you. That is your framework.
I'll take it. I'm not going to fight you anymore.
So the first C, conversational. Tell me about what you mean there. Yep.
Cool. So the idea is we want the email to be written like you were, you saw the person's name and you said, Bob, I know Bob. I want to let Bob know what's going on. I want to start a conversation with him. Okay. It's not this, super sort of flowery language. It's not dramatic. It's not well structured from like we see in direct response copywriting. You see like 2-line or 2-sentence lines, and it's like, very sort of canned. There's a way of making an email sound like, I was just a coworker. I shot an email, with an article in it, or a coworker. I wanted to chat about this thing. So, hey, here's what I want to chat about. Here's the idea, and let's go.
Got it.
So conversational. It's like if it sounds like a marketing message or if it sounds salesy, it's not a good sales message. And that's what I mean by conversational. And I think it's a hard thing to quantify, but you know it when you see it. Like it makes you want to take a shower if it's direct response or something like that.
Yeah. And it's like A, sound casual as if you're talking to someone, and B, like write an email that somebody would even have a response to, right? So many times you'll get an email and you'll be like,
yes,
interesting. So now what? Right? And it's like something, it's not a call to action per se, but it's definitely to inspire conversation, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not the point, like conversational is not to like, I think that's number 3, conspicuous, but the idea is like write it in a way that like you could conceive somebody responding to. And I think that's the point you're making, which is really, which is really powerful.
Better said. Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So number 2, the second C of writing a good sales email is to be concise.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. How do you go about that? What's your advice there?
So a concise email is a virtue. Okay. Concise sales copy is a virtue, even though, I think like even people who are really proud of what they do, or are passionate about what they do. Like I'm talking, I've just said a bunch of words and I haven't made a point, but I'm really passionate and I can't quite get it out, because I just want to keep saying stuff. Right.
Yeah.
That's what happens on a lot of emails, right? There's like, I've gone through with clients where it's like, all right, you edited my first email before we have an understanding of like, hey, I know what I'm doing when it comes to, writing sales copy. Well, really my teams, right? But hey, look, we know what we're doing when it comes to writing sales copy. You just took this sentence, you made it twice as long. You haven't said anything different than what we said. Now read that out loud and don't take a breath in between. And it's not like a grammar thing. It's like, if you got 2 commas in a sentence, there's a lot of words. There's a lot of stuff there. So the idea is like respect people's time, but also like respect that like what you're saying is powerful enough that you don't need to dress it up with 9,000 adjectives. And
respect like how little time you have to make your damn point. Right.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
The other thing, so there's that's more like long-windedness, right? There's a different flavor of that you'll see a lot. I see it more. I feel like I see it more working with clients than I do in my inbox, but actually now that I think about it, it's there. But, say it's a product or a service or whatever that does a lot of things, covers a lot of ground, has a very wide reaching kind of umbrella of what it could do. And I feel like, especially with like a small business owner too, right? Like they want to squeeze it all in. They want to cover every base to make sure that nothing is left unsaid, right? And it turns into, I wouldn't even call it an elevator pitch. Like this is like the biggest building in the world. Maybe that elevator ride.
Sure. And that, exactly. So that's kind of where 2 and 3, once again, you just love harping on number 3, man. So this is good. Yeah. So the idea is, yes, keep it short, but not so short that it says nothing, but not so long that you could say the same thing with a shorter email. Right. Yeah. And then if we move into number 3, the idea is the point of the email is conspicuous. And I think that's what you're talking about with like this elevator pitch, right? It's like, it's like you assume that you are going to have more than one communication that is read or received, whether that's, a phone call, email, live chat, text message, whatever that is. Like assume that you'll have more than one interaction with that prospect.
Yeah. So I will just defend myself a little bit. They're not the same, right? I see what you're saying, but also as part of number 2, being concise, is don't try to explain how the world was created, but also to number 3, it is, stand out, be clearly visible, attract attention right away. So there's like some overlap there. And I also think like those two can work together, because like be so attention getting by being so concise. That's actually attention getting in its own way.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, exactly. So I agree with what you're saying. And I think like we go back to like conspicuous. The point is very clear why this person is reading it. And I think like being concise helps with that. And then, I think that's, these two definitely play off each other, but I mean, at the end of the day, the 4 of them play off each other because they're the 4 C's of good sales copy. So I think that's a great point. I think that's
4 C's, 1 email, right?
Yes. 4 C's, 1.
They must play nice.
Yeah. That's like the Jack Welch. What is it? The 4 P's, 1 E framework. No, 4 E's, 1 P framework. Jack Welch book winning. Pick it up. Favorite book ever.
Yeah. Okay.
Shameless plug. Love by Jack Welch. You know,
you're the studied business nerd. I'm the art degree guy. So don't forget to know your audience here. All right.
Yes.
All right.
Marketing versus sales, right? So so now we go into the fourth one, which I think is kind of a total change of flavor here. But number 4 is your email should be contextual. And in marketing, we've known that segmenting lists is very, very powerful, right? And there's a million ways to segment a list. When we're looking at sales emails and we're looking at sales copy, the way that we here at Union are typically segmenting is something that allows us to relate the conversation or relate the sales copy to a conversation that is very relevant to that person. Now, this isn't rocket science, but these things that we're talking about are not rocket science, but they are frequently ignored. So the idea would be use like geography, like a geo-selling campaign. Use technographic data to relate, problems or solutions that are specifically related to what software somebody might be using. Intent data is great. Be careful, buyer beware. And then, firmographic data, right? So the size of the company, are they Fortune 500? Are you writing to a Fortune 500 executive? There's probably a lot of news. We can build, very nice content there. Yeah. So I think like that's where things like I think personalization is a sort of sub of this. But if you're trying to do at scale or it's really cold, fall back to contextualization through data and then get more personalized to provide that over time.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And then I would add this, like this bullet could be a part of other kind of rants we go on. Right. And we were doing this a little bit yesterday, but like to do your homework kind of factor. Right. And so part of being contextual is knowing the context, not to be like overly obvious, but like research who you're talking to, figure out it's more than just like looking on Owler and seeing what news article, like sweet, like it's like, no, come on, like get to know the product, maybe understand the projects they're doing, like whatever it could be, know who you're talking to, know the title, get to know how the business operates, right? What their sweet spot, I don't know, all that stuff. Because when you get that email that's so blatantly like the person didn't, or maybe the robot that sent it, and I'm not going to even go so far as it was a person, has so little context into what I actually need. And it's almost offensive when you get those emails, right? And we went off on this yesterday and we decided to tap the brakes because we were just like,
we couldn't get it.
We wanted to shed it in a positive light. So anyways, my point is oftentimes to be contextual requires research and requires not being
planning.
Totally lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, planning.
And I think like it depends on what stage. Like as I said, if you're super cold, like don't spend all the time in the world to like highly personalize this. Like that's understanding, that it's this kind of organization that they're using this kind of technology, that they're, that they might be having these kinds of problems and you can solve this. Like if you're being concise and you're being conversational, like you can get pretty freaking far.
Yeah.
Without needing to know where they went to grade school.
Yeah. So, first dog's name. Yeah. And the other thing is you mentioned this too. Part of the context is what do you call it? Altitude within the company. Yeah. Like that's part of it too. Who you're talking to. We're getting into that industrial marketing kind of concept
framework. Yes, absolutely.
Don was talking about, that could become a very big piece of it if you unpack that, right? Like who's the decision maker, who actually needs buy-in, who needs to be the champion, whose problem are you actually solving? That's all context as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, and I think it was episode 29, the last intent data overview we did.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to it, listen to it. But we talk about this, right? So it's like, where somebody is it like geographically, that's context where they are in the organization. That's
the org
context, contact level, context clues. Like that's wonderful. And that doesn't take that much work, to do in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's not an outlet. So I think it's a great point. The industrial marketing framework, understanding the stakeholders, all that can really play into this, and I think like number 4, contextualization gives you a good base to be conversational, to be concise, and to be conspicuous, because like it's doing a lot of the work for you. Like you don't need to come up with what to say. Like, what problems you're solving, what problems that person is facing on a daily basis and how they're interacting with the problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like if you can find that, it really will start to write the copy for you.
Yep. I like it. So let's, we've talked about this in other podcasts, but I want to bring in a couple other tips though. I wanted to share, in case someone's only reading this podcast, the data you had. I don't remember the exact data points, but the fact that like using a link in an email, the long link rather than a hyperlink text, is significantly more productive. So I want to call that out again, because that's changed my thought when I'm doing stuff like this. But the other thing is, like, in an email or within this framework, where do like URLs lie? Do you want to add a link to something in here? Are you sharing something? Like, is there anything in that vein that it's worth
I guess this is a shout out to my colleague Mark Troy here. Like, seeing some of the content over the last couple of years that he's like just thrown together like quickly, and it's so powerful. It's good stuff, right? It's like the link should go where you would put it if you were just thinking about the content that you're doing, like right now. Like think about it in the moment. Like if I was going to write you an email, I might use bullets being conversational because I need to organize my thoughts, because it's a concept that needs a couple of bullets. Like here's a link. Here, here's an article, here's a link, right? You can use bullets. It doesn't, it still looks conversational, right? Or it should be like, an afterthought. I write the piece of content, I throw the link at the bottom, right?
Yep.
It really, it's gotta be, it's like natural. Like it's like doing a podcast for a long time, or for, the first few episodes, it was like, I'm like trying to figure out what I'm going to say next before I'm even done saying and that's what I feel like a lot of marketing content is. It's like, it's so planned.
Yeah.
Sales content should be planned, but not look planned, So that's kind of
exactly
that's what I think about like links and all that kind of stuff.
That could be like the overarching title to the framework is make your emails look unplanned. By
it's
having
like
a good plan.
It's like in the 90s, like the messed up hair look for dudes, looks like you just rolled out of bed, bro.
Well, yeah. And, one of my dad's favorite phrases is a shitty plan's better than no plan at all. And he lives by that. I've seen some shitty plans, but it's always good to have a plan. Shitty plans out of myself, not him. So anyways, so let's talk key takeaways of this framework, and then we'll wrap it up and get on with our day.
Cool. So number 1, have somebody edit your sales copy. And I'm not talking about edit for like grammar. I think that's kind of table stakes. Like if you got to nail your grammar. But the thing about it is like my colleague Beth, is great at making sure that the amount of words, the tightness of the sentences, like all those kinds of things, can improve the power of your writing. I'm not saying like make it so formal that you're missing your audience, but like there's a lot of times where, you use passive voice on accident just because that's what you were writing. Yeah. Where like conversationally you might use passive voice, but like you don't want to do that, those kinds of things. So like have somebody edit your sales copy to drive that concise, the conciseness and really kind of make sure that the structure is getting the point across and really being conspicuous.
And I'd say if you can't find anyone to edit it, read it out loud. The things that will come out of that are pretty incredible. I maybe do that before you have someone edit it, saving the time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Next takeaway.
Okay. So just because you think it sounds good doesn't mean it will be productive. Yeah, I remember the early days of like Facebook advertising. The ads that I was like the most excited about.
Yeah.
Because like the production was great. Everything. Landing page took me 2 weeks to build.
Yeah.
Just didn't.
Perfection, right?
Nothing. Yeah, it just did nothing. And then the stuff that I like went into HubSpot and like threw together a landing. There's one that took me 15 minutes to build. And then 5 years later, that store is still using the page. It's like the most productive landing page on the planet. So the idea is just because you think it sounds good doesn't mean it will be productive. And this goes back to my first takeaway, which is have somebody edit your sales copy. Like just because you like the way it sounds doesn't mean that your audience will. In fact, a lot of times it won't. And that's as go ahead.
My early HubSpot years, pre HubSpot when I was an agency, and early on in HubSpot before HubSpot leaned more into a space that could accommodate more design savvy looks and feels of websites and landing pages. I used to hear Brian Halligan say all the time, a beautiful site is not necessarily a productive site. And some of the ugliest sites are the most productive. And that's what's important. And it's a really good point, and it applies here. It's
about your audience. It's not about you. Better put, right? Like that's the reason. It's like your audience isn't you. Write it for your audience.
Like beautiful designs and pixels are beautiful, but they don't necessarily convert, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So third takeaway.
Don't try to tell your whole story in one outreach touch.
Yeah. So I was kind of jamming on that earlier, right? Like don't try to explain how the earth was created in your outreach emails, right? And again, I think especially for someone close to it, especially a business owner, the passion for their baby, right? They want to tell the whole story because it's like every moment of their life is spent thinking about this, right? And they just want to tell everything. And they're so emotionally attached to it that they just want to tell you everything, right? And you're like,
exactly.
I don't even know you. So I think that's actually one of my favorite takeaways is just don't tell the whole story. Be quick and say stand out. So anyways, all right.
Leave people, with and we'll talk about this like in another episode around like calls to action in the sales copy, but it's like leave people asking you to take the next step, right? Like
to learn more. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, cool. All right, man. Well, great chat. Thanks for introducing the 4 C's of writing good sales emails. This wraps up.
Dodge, dip.
I'm watching Dodgeball tonight. That's it. I'm going to see my kids like it. So, all right. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Intent Topics. I am Chris Battis.
And I'm Logan Kelly. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you listen on. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care.